Hello, everybody out there listening. It is a new day and it is a new dawn for the podcast formerly known as The Juice, now known as the Knights of Den podcast. Just an incredible time to be a Denver Broncos fan. It always is, as always. I mean, something that we love, something that we share, I guess, together is our common bond and our love for the team. And, we want to blend anything that we can, any common interest that we can with you, the listener. We're so thankful for all of you. We're so thankful for you joining us on this ride, this incredible journey as we're entering week 4 of the NFL season already. I still remember our first podcast before the NFL draft, how quickly time flies, how quickly the NFL season flies. It's important to enjoy it. It's important to enjoy what we're seeing. And here we are in week 4, and the Knights of Den podcast is debuting. And as with me, as always, Brandon Keckler. And we've got a special guest with us tonight, Brandon. We've got a very special guest.
Very special.
Nick Kendell, the man, the myth, the legend. I usually give you that title, but I'm just going to pass it on for one day.
Right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's give him all the mythic title tonight.
That's right.
I'll take it.
Nick, thanks for being on, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Just getting ready for the weekend. I have a gig tomorrow playing with a band, which is a lot of fun. Sing violin, play the mandolin, all that good stuff. And then beer festival this weekend.
Violin's my favorite instrument, so that's awesome.
I have been playing since I was 4 years old. So
that's amazing.
I had absolutely no choice.
Violin and beer festival, man. That sounds like an awesome Friday.
It's not going to be a bad weekend, that's for sure. The football could turn that around. Hopefully it'll be a little better than last weekend for me with the Hawkeyes going down and the Broncos getting their teeth kicked in. But then that's okay. There's other things outside of football.
At the very least, it'll be a better Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Stress-free Sunday.
Oh man, yes, much better Sunday. Well, Nick, I think that's a great introduction just to you, because a lot of people don't know a lot about us outside of our Broncos fandom, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like the people that we meet on Twitter and through just different ways of encountering Broncos fans, whether it's via your writing at Mile High Huddle or your podcast, the Huddle Up podcast. Give those guys a follow, by the way. My relationship with Chad and the guys there goes way back to Chad's time at predominantlyorange.com, which was a lot of fun. And it's really cool how we develop these kind of lasting friendships. And so we've connected well with those guys there. Follow everything that Mile High Huddle is doing. Those guys they're just incredible. They love the Denver Broncos. They give great analysis, great coverage, up to the second. I mean, it's just great. And they're Huddle Up podcasts. And Nick specifically with Carl Dummler, another good friend of the show, who's yet to be on. So, I mean, you're before Carl, so you can brag about that, Nick. But the Building the Broncos podcast at BTB football podcast, I believe.
Yes,
BTB
football pod.
Yeah, you got to follow those guys.
And I have a question for Nick.
Yeah, go for it.
Favorite Star Wars character and favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, man, probably got to go with New Hope, the original. Okay. And I love Chewie. He's always comedic relief, and him and Han Solo. I mean, every single movie that Chewie's been in, I feel like he's been the star in my opinion.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's just my opinion.
You're approved.
Yep, I love it.
You may proceed deeper into the podcast.
You may proceed. I love that. Well, this is awesome, dude. You play the violin, the mandolin, do some vocals. That's crazy because Jeff from Mile High Report, he plays the banjo. So I mean, you guys got to get together sometime and just jam.
Got a bluegrass band coming.
Seriously,
blue and orange bluegrass.
Some major pieces developing.
Yes, it is. It's all coming together now. This is why we were brought together, is to form a band. So, Nick, tell everybody just maybe the Cliff Notes version, depending on how long of a story is, how you became a Broncos fan.
Well, the first Bronco game that I honestly remember is Super Bowl 32 with the Broncos beating the Packers. And I would have been, not to date anybody, but I would have been probably 5 or 6 years old at that time. And my dad was a Bronco fan. And I just, fell in love with the team, fell in love with the sport. Most of my family is from the Missouri area. Live in Iowa now, but a lot of my dad's side of the family is in the Missouri area, and specifically on the St. Louis side. and St. Louis didn't have a team then. So they were in Los Angeles, and my dad's family would go to Denver all the time and loved the team, the blue and orange. So he was a Bronco fan, and I just, I fell in love with them from there. So been a Bronco fan my entire life, the ups and downs, and love the team, love the team building aspect of it too. I mean, we call it the Building the Broncos podcast for a reason. I am a draft fanatic.
That's awesome.
I watch a lot of college football, and I love that armchair GM as far as that stuff goes. And I've been following them forever. Just got a good collection of jerseys, and I went as John Elway and for Halloween when I was like 5-6 years old, and just been a Bronco fan forever.
That's awesome. That's awesome. By the way, this Thursday night football game is a shootout right now. Every time I look over, someone's scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who are listening, whenever you're listening, it's probably a good chance you're not listening on Thursday night. But the game at this point, it's not quite the end of the third quarter. It's 31-28. It was looking like a Rams blowout.
It's 38-28.
Oh wow, I'm behind. Okay,
it's
so
wild
I'm
right now. Yeah,
I am behind. Okay. So it's a fun game for fantasy football players, that's for sure, and it's living up to the Thursday night billing so far, which has been fun. But
another quick question for Nick. Yeah. So real quick, I'm in a dynasty league with Sayre, and I'm bad, man. I got 0-3 team right now, and I'm probably gonna have the number 1 overall pick. I'm taking for Bosa, so to speak. But since there is no defensive players, and you're a draft nut, who am I grabbing way too early? Who am I grabbing with number 1 overall? Best skill player next year.
Man, dude, I got bad news for you. It is not a good running back class next year. It really isn't. You missed out.
I don't need running backs. I have great running backs. So who's the wide receiver I'm taking?
Well, it's probably going to be, obviously wide receiver. You'll hear me say this on the Building the Broncos podcast. Wide receiver is a quarterback and scheme dependent position. Mm-hmm. A perfect example is Randy Moss going from the Raiders to the Patriots. Gosh, what a difference that makes statistically speaking. So it depends on where these guys land. Okay. But I really do like N'Keal Harry from Arizona State. He
very good player.
He's kind of a Des Bryant clone. And this next wide receiver class next year, I think, is got a chance to be pretty special. So we'll see how some of these guys stand out. But right now, I think N'Keal Harry from Arizona State would be my number 1 guy. But there's a lot to follow. So
I'll keep my eyes peeled. I'll be watching him.
Yeah,
I bet you you're gonna get a good fit. Somebody that John Dorsey picks up to match up with Baker. I bet you you're gonna get somebody nice.
I just traded for Baker today, so I'm pretty happy off that one. And I already have Luck, so we'll see who ends up becoming my franchise guy out of if the Colts can squeeze anything out of Luck.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, proceed. Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the big news today here on Thursday was the very unfortunate news. I absolutely hate these kind of updates. Hate them. Hate them during training camp. Hate them during games. Hate them especially in season during practices. But I have a specific hatred for contact injuries. And Jake Butt, Denver Broncos tight end, guy that we've been talking up all offseason, guy who we had some great notes on for this show.
Special stuff to say for this episode.
Man, he's out for the season with a torn ACL. So I defer to you, Nick. What do the Broncos do next in the wake of Jake Butt being injured?
Well, I think you probably just got to keep on keeping on. It's going to be unfortunate. He was looking like he was going to be that third down chain mover. He even showed a little bit of yak moves, the ability. He kind of did a little hip toss on some guys and got some extra yards, but they're probably going – I heard they're going to bring up Brian Parker, who did have some flashes in preseason from the practice squad, and they have Matt Lacoste. So we will see about that. It's 2 younger guys, relatively unknowns, but they've showed some stuff with Chad Kelly. Neither of them very good blockers right now, and Jeff Hireman's going to need to get more involved. But, man – the tight end group for Denver is not good. I don't think I'm being biased here. No. I think this 2 tight ends for the Iowa Hawkeyes are better than any of the tight ends or the Broncos. I'm not even kidding. Noah Fant's obviously known, and TJ Hawkinson. People aren't talking about him because he's under Noah Fant's shadow, but he's incredible as well. I think both of them potential round 1 for Fant because that skill set's very valuable, and then day 2 for Hawkinson when he comes out, but it's not good. The tight end group for Denver is probably one of the worst in the league after that Jake Butt injury.
It's got to be. What did Bill Musgrave describe it as earlier this year? I think his words were it's bleak. I'm pretty sure that's what he. And that was before Fumagalli went on injured reserve. That was with Butt healthy. I mean, my gosh, how much more bleak could it get? I was looking at a list of free agent tight ends, and I'm not a huge Kobe Fleener fan, but I mean, when in desperate need, I mean, break in case of emergency. There's nobody out there. I'm looking at this list of free agent tight ends. It's pathetic.
That's
I mean. Yeah, you got retired players like Martellus Bennett and Julius Thomas, and then you've got like Leaners of the world, Levine Toilolo. I didn't know he wasn't on a team, but apparently not. So, I mean, my gosh, they might have to poach off somebody else's practice squad or make a trade or something, because I don't know how you get through. I don't know how they'll get through the entire season with all three of those guys even healthy at this point, but we'll see.
Austin Traylor's still out there.
Ah, that's a good point. I forgot about him. I forgot that he wasn't with the team anymore.
And now that Paxton Lynch isn't going to kill him throwing it over the middle, he might stand a chance. I mean, he was our best blocking tight end last year, so I thought there was a chance they'd bring him back, but we'll see. I know they do like Lacoste and Parker. The issue is neither of them can block worth anything. Neither could Jake Butt. Jake Butt was not a great, especially a run blocker, but you know, it'll be interesting to see. But it's like Musgrave said, it is bleak.
Yes. Yep, and Butt was doing a lot moving around the formation too, and you can maybe speak to that a little bit more since you guys dive really deep into the film. But he was splitting out, playing in the slot, creating mismatches, and I thought that the interesting thing that Brandon pointed out in a text to me earlier this week was the fact that the last 2 weeks or the last 2 games even the Broncos have really trusted Butt. In those clutch situations, they went to him on that fourth and 6 play or whatever it was against Baltimore to try and kind of get back into the game there in the fourth quarter. And then the week before that, he was obviously featured on the game-winning drive against the Raiders. And so just a real bummer, because obviously he had earned the trust of Case Keenum. And, so that, I mean, especially late in the game. So not a fan of that injury. I was very high on Butt. I bought his jersey as a rookie for, maybe more reasons than just simply the fact that he was on the team. I mean, that's just a hilarious jersey to have,
The thing that's really disheartening for me personally, well, for him, but this is the second injury on that ACL. He had one in high school as well, and the one from college was the other knee. So now that's 3 ACL issues that he's had. So, I mean, it would not be something, and he has to go through this whole process again after just seeing the field. So, I mean, he could be done. Like, there was a reason that he was a day 2, day 3 talent that fell to the 5th round. He could be done. And my heart goes out to the guy because he loves football. I've heard multiple interviews with him, and he's a smart, good kid. And there was a risk taken into the 5th round because of those injuries, and you hate to see it, but I mean, that's his 3rd ACL injury. Not on the same leg, not like Thomas Davis for the Panthers, but you never like to see that. And there's some precedent that if he does come back, he might not be the same either. So it sucks.
Even knowing what we know now, would you still have drafted him when the Denver Broncos did?
Nope. I would have taken the guy that went right after him. Do you know who that was?
I have forgotten.
George Kittle.
I was about to say it. Dang it.
Oh.
Trusted my instincts.
George Kittle. Yep. 5th round pick, number 2 overall, right after. So he's been really good for the 49ers. Unfortunately for them, getting Garoppolo injured, but George Kittle. That's maybe just me being a biased Hawkeye fan, but he's been really good there. So
he has. It's okay to be biased when the player is really good. Like for years, I've been begging the Broncos to draft Iowa guys. Like I wanted Desmond King so bad, and then he fell to the 5th round. I mean, my gosh, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
He's better than our 3rd, 4th, and 5th cornerback right now.
Agreed. And that's just I don't get it. I don't understand that. I don't understand how the scouts are missing that with some Iowa guy. Even Josh Jackson, for him to be a 2nd round pick, I thought that was kind of a low blow. Yeah. I thought that was bull. But such is life. And those teams got nice bargains. I mean, Mike Daniels, what? Yeah. He doesn't pass the eye test. I mean, the dude was unstoppable at Iowa.
Yeah.
And against Big Ten linemen. So I don't know. It is what it is.
It's okay. AJ Epinesa will be a top 15 pick next season. 2020, not 2019,
absolutely.
2020. So he'll be okay.
He would look good. I mean, all these Iowa guys, they would look good in orange and blue. Josie Jewell, we finally got one.
Yeah.
We finally got one.
Hey, Casey Kreider. Don't sleep on the long snapper.
That is true. That is true. He does a good job. And you know how I know that he does a good job? Because I never hear about him. I never hear about him. Yep.
I've met his sister downtown at the bars in Iowa City a couple of times. She was a speech path, so she's listening. How you doing?
Okay.
But I had a couple of friends that did speech path here, so that's what happens when you live in Iowa City. Yeah, you see those guys and everything. It's pretty fun.
That is cool, and that's a cool common ground that we have is the Iowa Hawkeyes fandom. So my dad is a graduate of U of I. I didn't end up going there like I kind of dreamed as a kid, but yeah, my dad graduated there. My whole family is born and bred Hawkeye fans, and now here I live in the middle of Nebraska country. Yep.
The best I can contribute to that is I lived in Iowa for 2 years.
Hey, where at?
That counts.
Orange City.
Okay. I've heard of it.
Yep.
I don't think that's on. I'm on Eastern Iowa side, so a little different, but
yep,
I've heard of it. Yeah, it's. I mean, we got football, we got beer. That's football. That's good. It
all goes together. It all goes together. Well, let's talk a little bit about this Baltimore game. So obviously, when we're talking about these games, we're trying to find ways that the Broncos can exploit matchups and win the games. We're not always just thinking that it's necessarily a lost cause, but our job kind of is to promote reasons why they can win the game and also why they might lose. But I think against Baltimore, there were too many mistakes on the road, too many things that the Broncos did in really untimely situations, to be honest. And so let's look at just the offensive side of the ball, Nick. How would you evaluate what went wrong for the Broncos against Baltimore offensively?
Well, penalties kill you. You know, good teams, they don't do two things. They don't lose the turnover battle and they don't commit penalties. And the Broncos had 13 penalties for 120 yards, which equaled their rushing total on the day. You can't do that. It kills drives. It gets you behind the sticks constantly. And when you're doing that, you start reeling. And yeah, I mean, we saw that. You know, Garrett Bowles, he had a really good week one, had a solid week two, and then week three, things started to get away from him, and it snowballed quickly. You know, some questions about maybe some mental toughness issues there. Now, that's something we'll have to see if he bounces back this week, but not trusting his technique and resorting back to slop and grabbing his opponent. So penalties are bad, and I know that I'm definitely not I wouldn't say I'm a pessimist, but I'm definitely not a orange Kool-Aid fan when it comes to it, and I've been definitely one of the more, I wouldn't say detractors, but definitely difficult on Keenum. And through the first 3 weeks, you know, there's been some flashes, but I just see warts in his game that make me really concerned for if the Broncos team wants to be beyond a team contending for, you know, maybe division / playoffs.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah, he's struggling right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, his statistical output through the first 3 weeks is worse than what Simeon's was last year through the first 3 weeks.
Oh yeah.
So it's not great. The offensive line is better. The run game has been fantastic. I mean, Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, you got your running back set for the next 4 seasons with those cheap guys with a lot of tread still on their tires and a lot of carries still on their body. So that's fantastic. And the run game's working well. I mean, again, 120 yards. The Broncos have been running the ball effectively, but it's the pass blocking, which was not great against the Ravens, although it was better until that Ravens game. And then the quarterback just not playing great. And it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing when I see the offense, because I watch the All-22, the coaches film, everything like that. And Musgrave right now, he's calling plays that are not the best to Keenum's skill set. You know, he's calling some 15 yards out, stuff that's a little more longer developing, stuff that requires more arm talent that Keenum doesn't have. You know, Keenum, there's a reason he went undrafted. He's a smaller guy, smaller school and everything, but he does not have a great NFL arm. He's more of a guy that has to fit it in there with great touch and accuracy every time. Otherwise, it could be going the other way. You know, that's a big reason he went undrafted. It is what it is. He has great accuracy, great anticipation, but not a great arm in terms of velocity and ability to get the ball there on time. So what's happening? Teams are compressing the line of scrimmage. They're packing the box, which makes it crazy that the Broncos are running the ball effectively. Honestly, they should be running it even better. But teams are crowding the box, getting guys in the box, compressing the line of scrimmage, and taking away those short throws, those short timing throws, which what Keenum does best. and daring him to throw those 15, 10-yard, spot throws outside the hash marks. And if Keenum had even average arm talent as far as velocity goes, I don't think this would be a problem. He could hit those three times and really hurt those teams. And Musgrave's calling those plays based on the coverage. I just don't know that Keenum has the arm talent to take advantage of that. So something's got to give. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be some issues there. But I don't know. We'll see. The Broncos had a chance at quarterback last year. I heard they did try to move up to number 2. They offered a good deal to the Giants, but the Giants wanted more, and Elway said, no thanks. So they wanted Darnold or Mayfield. Didn't turn out that way. Chubb's not a bad consolation prize. I'm excited to see him going forward with Vaughn, but quarterback's still an issue, and I think it will be under Keenum going forward. I think he's a good placeholder. Leadership's there. They needed a guy that could stabilize stuff, but I think that we're getting the Los Angeles Rams version of Keenum rather than the Vikings version.
It's certainly I'm definitely, I think, would consider myself an optimist, and even here on the Knights of Den / our analysis of Keenum or hopes for Keenum on the previous Juice episodes, we were excited for him, and we were looking, we were very, graceful of the mistakes and whatever, willing to overlook and just hoping that something else would come out of this, and he just needed a few weeks or something. I haven't seen enough whatsoever at all from these first 3 weeks to see that, besides him pulling some rabbits out of his hat in the end of these games, to have any vote of confidence that he's our franchise guy. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it at all. And that's a bummer, because I really did think by this point that even, I don't know, despite maybe a couple, the interceptions and whatnot, I still thought that we would see more by this point for sure. I think most of Broncos country did.
Yeah. And the conventional line of thinking too is, and you brought up a great point about the fact that the running game for the offense is effective right now, despite stacked and compressed boxes. And so the conventional line of thinking is that if you run the ball well in the NFL, it sets up the pass. So why are the Broncos unable to throw the ball effectively for 4 quarters, considering how good their running game has been?
Yeah, it's a real issue, and then I don't think the teams they've played. The Ravens have a good defense. Let's be real, but I don't think that the Seahawks defense is a far cry from what it was during the Legion of Boom years, and the Raiders look inept back there. So, there's some questions with play calling, that's for sure. And the Broncos don't have a tight end, the middle of the field stuff. Which, hey, guess what? Guess where Keenum likes to throw the football? Over the middle of the field. So that's an issue for sure. But I don't know. I'd like to see more moving pockets. Keenum is best, I feel like, when he is moving and he can kind of change the angle of the pocket and kind of change. Like, I don't know, it's a typical Madden thing, but if you have an athletic quarterback, run to the side and change the angle, and you got a drag route coming across the way, you can totally change how the defense is playing it. That's kind of some of the stuff that they need. And you're not really seeing that right now. They're calling more of those down the field pass plays. And I feel like if they're going to take those shots, they need to come off of play action just to buy Keenum a little bit more time and get any sort of cushion that they can. The short pass game, get some timing stuff, maybe some more wide receiver screens, some bubble screens, and get the offensive lineman going as well, because we have good blocking wide receivers as well. That's something they need to be commended for. But it's just not clicking right now. New quarterback, everything like that. But it's frustrating, and it's frustrating too seeing these top 10 quarterbacks coming out there and up and down results so far. But man, these young quarterbacks in the NFL, and then we got Case Keenum. So it'll be on full display this week against Patrick Mahomes.
So what do we do? What do we do in the upcoming week to patch those holes / play better to our strengths?
Well, the Chiefs do not have a great defense. I'm not sure if you guys are aware. I'm sure you are, not to belittle you or anything, but DVOA, the stats haven't normalized yet, but that kind of, they do good stuff as far as the opponents teams have played and more of a statistical analysis rather than just the straight up yards and everything like that. Right. And the Chiefs have last I checked, they have the number 1 ranked offense by DVOA, the number 1 ranked special teams by DVOA, but they have the 32nd ranked defense. Now there's a little bit of factors reason that go into that, I believe. When you're like the Chiefs and you've been up 21-0 or 28-7 pretty early, you can afford to play some pretty soft defense and give up yards and everything like that. That's going to affect the defense. So I don't know if they're the worst defense in the NFL, but they're not good. Eric Berry is they're definitely missing him. So this is a good chance for the Broncos offense to do some stuff. But they're going to have to really step it up a couple notches if they're going to keep up with the firepower that is what Andy Reid has with the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how they choose to match up, because we've kind of seen Joe Woods go a little bit more to the zone concepts that we thought earlier in a previous episode of The Juice. We had talked about how to maybe mask some of those deficiencies in the secondary with Aqib Talib gone by utilizing a little bit more zone coverage, but man, let's go back in time and erase that thought and idea, because it has not worked. It absolutely has not worked.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how you match up one-on-one with a guy like Tyreek Hill. I mean, maybe this is my line of thinking, and maybe this is just silly, but I think you put a guy like Pac-Man Jones on him and just try to rough him up and just hope that he gets like in his head or something, like Lance Stevenson guarding LeBron James in basketball. It's like, well, Lance Stevenson's not going to guard LeBron James. Give me a break. But he kind of gets into his head, you know? So I don't know. I don't know what you do to stop all the speed, but at the same time, like you mentioned, 32nd ranked defense. I found some interesting numbers about the Chiefs defense this week as I welcomed Kansas City Chiefs Twitter onto my timeline. I think that was Tuesday. I really did. And I was really excited about it. I made a pact with myself that I wasn't going to get offended by anything that they said. And so I had a lot of fun with that. And so, but because of that, I actually really forced myself to go and look at what are the reasons why this Chiefs defense was bad through the first, couple games, and what made their offense so successful. I don't know if Chiefs fans know this, but the three teams that they've played are all in the bottom 6 of the NFL in total defense points allowed this year. Not just yardage allowed, but points allowed. So they're all allowing 30 points or more per game. And so that's kind of my sliver of hope for the Broncos right now, is the fact that Kansas City is giving up points by literally 30 points a game. And so if Denver can even come close to that, I think that they can compete in this one. I just don't know. I want to know. I want to know how that pass rush can start getting home a little bit more. And maybe you can shed some light on that, Nick. What do they have to do? Because they're not really getting it nowhere near the amount of pressures they were getting against Seattle. So what do they have to do to get to Mahomes in this game?
Well, to get to Mahomes, I feel like they probably need to be a little bit more aggressive with their coverage. Right now, the last 2 games, especially the Broncos, and Joe Woods has been called out by Chris Harris Jr. and Vance Joseph for calling so much softer coverage and not mixing it up. But the Broncos have been playing a lot of off man. Yes, I see some fans on Twitter saying, why are the Broncos calling zone? They're not really calling that much zone. It's just a lot of off man. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. It could be that they don't trust the safeties or the depth at cornerback or the linebackers in coverage. And if you're playing off man, you can be a little bit more conservative and you're not at as risk to give up big plays, which, as we saw against Seattle, the Broncos defense, guess what they did? They gave up a few amount of big plays. So, yeah, it's an issue. But if you want to get pressure, I'm not sure that sending blitzes against the Chiefs is the best, because their weapons are so fast that if you give up a big 60-yard touchdown pass, that could be the game. That could be a knockout blow pretty quickly. So I think you got to trust your guys, but you need to be a little bit more aggressive and physical against these receivers. And that doesn't just include, within the 5 yards and at the line of scrimmage, but especially at the catch point. I mean, Roby so far, I've been a big Roby defender in his career. A lot of people expecting him to be Chris Harris Jr. at Talib. He hasn't been that, but he's got to step up this year. And so far, he's been not great. Granted, his issue at Ohio State, he was considered a top 10 pick the season before he came out of the draft, and then he kind of slid down because they were using Roby as an off-man corner, and that's not where he succeeds. He has amazing recovery speed and very fluid hips, which, sorry, this weird draft lingo I'm saying right now, weird stuff to say. If you're not a football lingo person.
I like the fluid hips comment.
Yeah, it's so important. And Roby has that, and he has good recovery speed, but I feel like he gets a little bit in his own head when he's playing off man. He's much more natural when he's up at the line of scrimmage, gets his hand on the guy, and then can track him. And it's just not seeing that right now. So it could be a personnel issue, but I feel like you got to play these guys in positions where they succeed. I mean, playing Isaac Yiadom as an off-man corner, you're destined for failure.
Why were they doing that? I mean, they specifically noted that he was a press man corner. when they got him. That's what they said, that he plays press man and we play press man. That's why they picked him. I mean, it's funny to me how that kind of stuff works out. But you know, I like what you said. This is a big game for Bradley Roby. This is a gut check for Bradley Roby, because according to Pro Football Focus, he's been the worst player on the team. The worst player on the team. I mean, and not that their grades mean everything, but I mean, you're talking about a guy that's given up 15 receptions on 18 targets in the passing game this year. And I think the quarterback rating on throws in his coverage is around like 121 something. Yeah. And so, and he's got a penalty as well this year. So he's, it couldn't have gone worse over the first 3 games for Roby. And so that gives me hope that the only way for him to go is up at this point. But he does need to have a big game against Kansas City, especially if he's going to be. I don't know if they're going to match up Harris against Hill. I'm sure they're going to try and double cover Hill. I don't know what they're going to try to do there, but yeah, this is a big bounce back game for Bradley Roby.
Yeah, and the point I was originally getting to before I started going off on a tangent there is that Roby, I feel like he's been in good position, but his issue is that he is not aggressive. He's not been aggressive so far this season at the catch point. I mean, there's been plays where he's right on, Michael Crabtree or whatever, but he's not getting his head around. And there's obviously, the NFL is really tilting its way to an offensive game where you can't touch these guys. But you know what? This is still the NFL. You need to get out there and be aggressive. And if that ball's coming, I need you in that receiver's hip, your head around, making a play on the ball and not giving them easy catches. And if you're at his hip, but you're not making a play on the ball and obstructing the catch point at all, you might as well. And that's it's been too often for Roby so far this season. So he just needs to be much more aggressive throughout the routes at the beginning and then also at the catch point. And until he does that, other teams are going to continue to have success against him.
Do you think he's worth a long-term investment? He's a free agent after the year?
It totally depends on what type of money he's seeking. Right now, he's not a type of guy that you can't let hit free agency. He's the type of player, as far as impact and talent, that you let him go test the market and then come back with the deal. What is the market going to set for him? Because there's guys like Von Miller and whatnot, where if you even let him hit free agency, you're stupid. Yeah. Roby, you should let him see what the market dictates, and then from there, can decide if he's worth it or not. I need to look at the cornerback money and what type of contract he'd be worth. But he's playing like a low end cornerback 2 right now, and honestly, Chris Harris Jr. isn't playing great either. Another debate, but right now he's got to turn around if he wants to make that big money. And I know there's not a lot of great corners on the market this year, but that helps him. And also, it doesn't look like outside of cornerback draft class, so somebody's going to pay him, but I don't know if it's going to be Denver with how he's played so far.
Yeah, good points there. He's got to step it up. I mean, it's his money, it's his career on the line. I mean, he could go from being before the start of the season, I mean, maybe people would project him as maybe like a 10 to 12 million guy a year. I mean, just kind of spitballing based on what numbers I relatively know of with cornerbacks. I think the high right now is between 15 and 16 a year. So obviously before the season, maybe you're looking at like a 10 to 12 million a year at this point. I mean, I'd be a little nervous about the investment if it was like 7 or 8 million a year. I'd be a little bit nervous about that. And even though that's pretty low for a corner, maybe my expectations were a bit too high, but I'm with you. I saw a good Roby last year. Roby was, one of the most improved players on the team. He looked like he was ready to take over this role that they paved for him by trading away Aqib Talib. And speaking of Talib, really disappointing end to his year in Los Angeles with a high ankle sprain that's going to put him on season-ending injured reserve.
I thought he was still potentially eligible. They were hoping to get him back this year.
Oh, okay. Is that what they're trying to do?
Maybe at the end
back
of the season.
2 players.
That's right.
Yeah, 8 has to be 8 weeks.
Ah, okay. So he's out for at least 8 weeks. So crazy. Yeah. Well, I think what. I don't know if there's a clear answer to how to beat Kansas City. I want to know what your thoughts are on the the old saying of, hey, rivalry games, you throw the records out the window, you throw the stats out the window. What role does the mojo play in this game? What role does the Mile High Magic play in this game? I mean, obviously, in these rivalry games over the past 3 years, Denver's been I mean, they've stunk. Let's just put it how it is. For the past 3 years against Kansas City, the Broncos have been really bad. And so, what role do those intangibles play in this type of a game? Just all things considered, with the matchup the way that it is.
Honestly, maybe I'm boring like Kirk Ferentz, but to me, it's another football game. You know, for the fans, it's different, but you got to prepare for it. Like, it's just another football game. You can't get over yourself and try to be too perfect. That's when things can get haywire. And honestly, I think that's been an issue for them in the last few games, you know, being overhyped and not having that calm, cool, collective force where you can just look across the way and you see number 18 with Manning on the back and you'd be like, we got this. Totally different. Yeah. So the fans, it's going to be in a great atmosphere, obviously, Monday Night Football, and this game could determine the fate of the season and many of the coaches on this team as well.
Maybe the Galaxy.
Yeah. Galaxy is at stake. Yeah. Yep.
For sure. The Rebels got to take over.
That's right. That's right. So let's just hypothetically say that the Broncos, let's say next week we're talking about the Broncos beating the Kansas City Chiefs. What would your guys' predictions be as reasons why?
Well, go ahead. I've been talking a lot. Go ahead.
Hey, pass rush. I mean, I'm hoping that maybe we give him the most pressure initially than he's seen from these other teams. That we got to get back there again. We got to get back there like we did week 1. That. I think Von Miller really needs to kind of maybe have a couple of those game-changing plays. I don't know how much confidence I have in our defense outside of our pass rush right now, man.
The defensive line has been pretty good as far as run stuffing as well.
You're right. Absolutely. But they're not doing too much of that. They're Mahomes is gunning it. I mean, I know they've got Kareem Hunt, but they're not running too much this year. It seems like they're just the high-flying, passing Tyreek Hill show. So I don't know.
They look like a Big 12 team.
Yeah, they do.
They really do.
Ironically, with Patrick Mahomes playing Texas Tech. I mean, and that's why I think it's so funny. A lot of people, and these are not the people that you want to trust in the, all the time in the draft community, but like the people who have those stigmas that say, well, he's a Texas Tech quarterback, or he's a USC quarterback, or he's a Wisconsin running back, like those type of things, like you talked about with this just being another game. You can't always rely on, a player coming from a certain scheme or a certain school as, a reason not to take them in the draft or not to think that they're going to be good. Like the stigma with Texas Tech quarterbacks has obviously been that the system at Texas Tech, whoever's running it, has been the reason for their success. But it was easy to see Patrick Mahomes the best quarterback in last year's draft, in my opinion. I thought he was. I thought he was better than either Goff or Wentz, in my opinion, just the way that he played. And so I know that's pretty high praise considering he's only played 4 games and Goff looks like an MVP right now, and Wentz has already been, probably an MVP. But to me, I was like, man, this guy is just really, really good. And so for any of the Chiefs fans who stumble upon this, don't think that us Broncos fans are delusional enough not to have liked. I mean, would we have taken Patrick Mahomes in the 2017 draft over Bowles at this point? I mean, come on, let's just call it what it is. So, but I think that if the Broncos are going to win this game, if we're talking about a victory next week, we're talking about the impact that Von Miller had on the game. I like what you said with the pass rush, Brandon. Von Miller. And sound off on this, guys, if you are kind of in agreement with me on this, or if you notice this. I didn't feel like Von Miller had hardly any impact on the game against Baltimore. And diving deeper into the numbers, it looks like he played only 49 snaps out of a possible 72. And I know that's pretty typical of Von over the course of his career, between 50 and 55 snaps a game. But when the snap count goes up like that, up to 72, that's a lot of snaps for a defense to be on the field. Why is Von Miller not on the field more? And why is he dropping into coverage on 3 of those plays?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it a little bit sometimes with the 3-4, just to have some variety out there. But yeah, you almost have to wonder if he kind of got dinged up or something. But he did not have a good game. Honestly, I think Bradley Chubb had a better game last week than Von Miller did. But did Bradley Chubb have a better game because Von Miller's across from him? That's that we talked about on Twitter the other day about football stats. It's totally different than baseball stats, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
So, but for me, going back to it, if the Broncos win this game, I think that there's two big keys for this. One, I talked about it a little bit earlier. You have to limit the big plays. That's how the Chiefs have done it. I know that everybody wants the Broncos to play that physical press man defense, and I think there are spots in this game where you want to do it. But if you make the Chiefs have to march down the field 12, 14 plays to score, I'm not sure if Patrick Mahomes is going to have the patience to do that. Right now I watched 2 of his games from an all 22 film perspective, and there are times that he's forcing balls. Granted, he can still make the plays because his arm talent is up there with the best of them in the league. But there's been checkdowns and options where I feel like he should have moved the ball and gone to that safe read and picked up the 5 to 10 yards, and he just hasn't been doing it. So instead of letting him march, or instead of letting them get a 60-yard pass play for a touchdown, make him string together drives, and if he does it, tip your hat. But you're much more likely to get behind the sticks and everything like that if you are having to constantly first down, second down, third down, first down, second down, third down. So no big plays. You give up the big plays, you're done.
Yep.
And then the second one, you got to take the ball out of the offense's hand. How do you do that? Good run game. The Broncos can't do that this week. It's kind of like again, bringing it back to the Iowa game, the Iowa-Wisconsin game this week. That first quarter and the first half flew by like crazy. And it's totally different than most college games these days. Like the ACC, you're seeing 55-49 or something like that. It was 7-7 or something. It was a very low scoring game. And that was because they're running the ball, using up the clock constantly. The clock is constantly turning. And the Broncos can do that this week. The Chiefs are not doing a great job stopping the run. And the Broncos have ran the ball pretty well. I mean, I know everybody's favorite son is Philip Lindsay, but Royce Freeman right now, he is running against packed boxes 58.33% of the time. That is an 8+ men in the box, 58.33% of the time. That's the second highest in the league. So I feel like this is a Royce Freeman game. You punch him in the mouth consistently over and over again, out physical them. That Chiefs defense hasn't shown they can be physical. Take the ball out of Mahomes' hands and, make them frustrated. They want the offense out there. Don't let them be out there.
I feel so good about that particular matchup. That's where my confidence is coming from right now. I realize Kansas City's offense has been just unbelievable, but I think you brought up a really good point with your study of Patrick Mahomes, all 22, some of the throws that he's kind of forcing in there that the Chiefs are getting a bit, let's call it what it is, lucky at this point on. I think that I was reading some next gen stats on NFL.com, and Patrick Mahomes has the 3rd lowest expected completion percentage in the NFL. So basically, for those who are listening, basically they're calculating the probability of whether or not a throw is going to be completed. And Mahomes's throws, I think his expected completion percentage was just hovering over 61%, 2 players lower than him. And then his actual completion percentage is around 66.7 or something like that. And so he's playing well. He's overachieving a little bit in terms of the throws that he's actually completing. And so when you look at that, and like you said, they're getting those big chunk plays. They're kind of, they haven't really had to use Kareem Hunt a lot, which is interesting to me. But the teams that they're playing, like I said, really bad defenses, and that's not to say that Denver's defense looks like the 2015 version, which we had all hoped that they could be. But it's an interesting, just kind of whole melting pot of things that are factoring into this that make me think Denver at home. They've been very, very good running the ball this season, like you mentioned. Royce Freeman has been excellent. I think he's averaging, what did you say, over 4 yards a carry against those stacked boxes. And so he's doing an incredible job. Philip Lindsay not going to be throwing any punches in this game. They're going to be able to control the clock. I think that they have a good chance of kind of throwing things off for the Chiefs a little bit. And it's it's time. They're due. They're just due for a win against the Chiefs. I mean, it at some point that streak is going to end. And so I don't know. For me, whether it's a combination of factors, whether it's, the things with Mahomes and his kind of being a little bit lucky on some throws, I don't know what it is. I kind of got a good feeling about this game. I feel like Von Miller is going to be playing a little ticked off, and I think everybody else is going to kind of rally around that. So I'm interested to see what happens. And like you mentioned way earlier, Brandon, I'm excited to see just some Sunday football stress-free. So we'll see what happens with the Oakland Raiders against Baker Mayfield, a player that absolutely I think most of Broncos country would have just freaked out if we could have drafted him. He lived up to the billing. I don't know, Nick, if you got a chance to watch that first game with Baker versus Darnold. Did you get a chance to see that whole game?
I didn't get to break it down, but I got to see a fair amount of it. I was actually at a brewery doing office trivia.
Oh, so nice.
Living my best life. Yeah.
That is the best life right there. Baker plus office trivia. What were your initial impressions of him in his NFL debut?
There's just such a magnetism that he brings that I mean, people were comparing him to Brett Favre. It really does. There really is something about it. When he's on the field, it's just a different energy. And people, I mean, it's kind of funny to see NFL analysts, talking about him. People that honestly didn't probably break him down much at Oklahoma, like, wow, this little guy, not super little, but this smaller guy has got a great arm. Yeah. Just because he plays in that lollipop offense at Oklahoma where these guys are wide open all the time. I mean, he rocketed in there when he had to. I mean, really, that Georgia game when I watched him was the one where I finally was like, oh, okay, I see. I mean, he did good against TCU, everything like that, but that Georgia defense, he made them look like a Big 12 defense.
Yeah.
So he's a fun player, and I honestly, all four of these quarterbacks that were drafted in the top 10 are very intriguing. And I mean, they were dubbing it the year of the quarterback. We'll see if it lives up to it, but all these guys, besides Darnold, weren't starting week one, and they're all already out there now. So it'll be fun to watch them all going forward.
And a lot of the other young guys are all doing well too from the, second and third years. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. Seems like a whole new transition.
Everybody but Paxton Lynch.
Everybody but Paxton Lynch came through.
Maybe we should throw swag in and join the club.
Yeah.
If the wheels fall off this season, the last 4 games, I could see it. But I think they're going to ride Keem until it's obviously done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, until they're proven to be out of it, I don't think we'll see Chad Kelly barring injury, and so it is what it is. We don't have Baker. We didn't get in a position to get him. We weren't in position for Darnold, which I would have loved either guy. I would have loved either of those guys, honestly, in the draft. And I liked Rosen as well. I think Rosen brought some great stuff to the table, and I would have even been okay with Lamar. I think I would have been a little upset about Josh Allen. Yeah, I think I would have been a little bit upset about that. And I don't know. He did so good against Minnesota last week, but now Minnesota to me just looks like a complete pretender. So I don't know. I think they're obviously still talented, but
they just blew it.
They
had the ball with about 2 minutes left and only down 7. All they needed was a drive, and then Kirk just got
strip
sack from behind, and fumbled it, and now Rams have the ball and they're running the clock out, and they won.
I almost called the cops on that last drive because Aaron Donald absolutely assaulted an offensive lineman. It was I love Von Miller, but I think probably due to age and everything like that, if I could pick one player defensively to start a franchise right now, it would probably be Aaron Donald. Yeah. That dude is just, there's nobody like him as far as interior pass rushers. He's a freak.
He was another guy coming out of college that kind of like Baker, there were some that were doubting whether or not he would translate because of his size. Yeah. I'm so intrigued by the way that he's been able to overcome his size. I mean, he's not a big defensive tackle, but I mean, he's rocked up. He's obviously really, really strong.
Like 6'3", 285, something like that, 280.
Yeah, he's just a different breed. And I think that's so cool that you see NFL offensive and defensive coordinators utilizing these guys who in a box, putting the NFL in a box, like, yeah, these guys aren't really fits for the game, but then you have innovative coordinators like Sean McVay or Josh McDaniels in New England. I mean, there's a reason why a guy like Danny Woodhead became a household name, so to speak, in the NFL. because creative offensive coordinators find ways to use guys who are just talented at certain things.
Yeah. I mean, Julian Edelman was a quarterback in college.
Exactly. And so I long for that type of creativity in Denver, and that reminds me of something that I meant to say earlier when we were talking about. We mentioned Philip Lindsay. We mentioned a little bit about Bill Musgrave and the plays that he's calling and everything. I don't understand why the Broncos don't call more running back screenplays. I sit there and wonder that throughout the games every week. Why are they not just whipping out a little screen right here to Philip Lindsay? But I don't know.
They tried one last week that I believe, kind of remembering, but it didn't work to Lindsay before he got kicked out.
This offseason for Lindsay, I know we're already talking about next offseason, but I'd love to see him work on his route running and then get some empty sets out there. Or like something Baltimore did last week that absolutely, had me jonesing, was they had both Alex Collins and Buck Allen out there at the same time. And then Buck Allen was playing fullback, but he just run a little flat route and boom. I mean, he scored a touchdown that way. And that's totally, I mean, if you want to expose linebackers in coverage, have two guys back there that can catch the ball. That's some New England stuff. So Lindsay, if you're listening, probably not, but if you are listening,
we'll send it to him.
Yeah, we'll send it to him. This offseason, man, work on those routes, and that could take his game to the next level.
Good point. Very good point. Very, very good point. And I think that looking forward now, I mean, obviously the whole outlook of this season is going to change one way or another based on this game. Like you said, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. This is where the Broncos find out what their identity is as a team. Are they a team that loses this? This is a big spot. I mean, you're playing a home game against a division rival. They're the hottest team in the NFL. Nobody thinks that you're going to win. How do you respond? And so I'm excited to see how that unfolds, even if the Broncos lose, because you know what? We're going to continue to press forward. We're going to continue to talk about, like with Nick, we can talk about the draft. We can talk about the draft all year long. It's never too early.
We could have done an hour-long podcast today with me, and I could have done the only draft. I'm not even kidding.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And Noah Fant, he should be on the radar. Iowa tight end Noah Fant should be on the Denver Broncos radar. Pair him up. Hopefully Jake Butt gets healthy. Hopefully it's not a career ender. You hate to see it, but pair him up. Get that Big Ten tight end group. Just continue to grow that, foster that. I love it.
Yeah. I think we got a lot of pieces, and this is something I kind of got checked on hard today. I was excited about Baker and acquiring Baker in my Dynasty League, and I started watching or listening to some podcasts from some Browns fans, and they were just like, who cares if we even won that game? Like, yes, that was awesome, but like, we have Baker, and it was fun to watch, and it was just like, that's simplicity, man. Like, I know they haven't had a lot more than that to get excited about, but man, there was something about that kind of humbled me. That was like, I'm so critical, and I can't have fun in a game unless they win. And it's like, those guys didn't even necessarily care. Just seeing Baker go in there and play, it was fun for them. And it kind of like made me want to just calibrate to like, maybe we're not going to go, and maybe I need to check myself now, seeing some of these gaping holes in our team. And then I'm watching like a team like the Rams. It looks like they're on top of the world right now. And it's like, you know what, maybe this isn't going to be our year. Take off, like you said, the orange colored glasses, and just enjoy the pieces that are moving forward. We had a really good draft this year. We got some really good young talent. Maybe Case isn't the answer. Yeah, let's just have fun watching this. Let's see what we have. Let's see the potential. And I need to calibrate myself to not let a loss like the Baltimore loss be so devastating, because it was.
Yeah. Well, better check yourself, because this might be the best team they play all year coming up Monday night. So
yeah, exactly. Time to get
it's already -5 towards the Chiefs, or +5 because the Chiefs the road team. Yeah. And Vegas is already betting very heavily towards the Chiefs, even though they're the away team with a 5. So if that says anything about what Vegas thinks, then this might not be a great game for Denver. But you know what? Like you said, you got to look at the little things.
Let's get a Sutton touchdown at least. Let's get our first Sutton touchdown. Let's get a few silver lining positives in here.
Deshaun Hamilton first career catch. That kind of thing.
Let's get Deshaun involved in the middle of the freaking field now, especially now that we don't have Butt. It's time.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah,
so
we'll take away those little victories no matter what. I think you guys are right on. It's it's not time to necessarily give up on the season, but it's time to start appreciating if we are going to give up on the season, or if the season isn't going to turn out the way, like in a Super Bowl victory, why not enjoy these young guys? Let's enjoy the
growth,
the exodus, the growth. Let's enjoy these guys' first years in the league so that we can look back and say, oh yeah, I remember this play, or I remember that play. Because I think if we're so focused on the outcome of the game, we're not going to remember parts of these guys' stories. Like I still remember Brandon Marshall's touchdown against Seattle like it was yesterday, because I was so excited to see Brandon Marshall out on the field and just making plays, because we'd heard all about this guy, this big 6'4" receiver who can make plays after the catch. He'd become one of the favorite targets in training camp, yada, yada, yada. He finally gets into the game with Keckler at quarterback. And like what those Browns fans were saying with Baker, it's like, I don't even care. I don't even think the Broncos won that game against Seattle. I'm pretty sure. But Brandon Marshall had that big touchdown. And so let's start looking at it like that again. Let's start enjoying these moments of just like, man, if Courtland Sutton gets his first touchdown, that's a win. When Josie Jewell plays as well as he did last weekend, that's a win. That's a big win.
We may need to start focusing on these things. We're going to need to raise the spirits of Broncos country pretty soon here.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I don't know if you guys, how much listen to the Building the Broncos podcast or anything like that, but talking about it all year, I said this is probably going to be a 500 team. Having the quarterback issues like they have and having questions in the back seven like they have, it's probably a 500 team. Keenum's been playing worse than I thought he would, so maybe ththose expectations go down a little bit, 7-9, 6-10. But the young guys look good, and there's some talent in this upcoming draft. So, I got to stack draft classes, and if it's not this year, got to get better. One more better.
Lots of major pieces to move forward with. That's the hopeful
building blocks.
Yes, absolutely.
Finally, there were so many conversations for the last few years about how the Broncos had some of the worst under 25 talent in the NFL. Well, when you're picking at the bottom of every round, it's kind of hard to compile that talent. I mean, obviously hindsight is 2020. So yes, they could have had guys like Le'Veon Bell instead of Monte Ball or whatever, but I mean, when you're talking about picking as low as they do every single year, it's hard to get those building blocks. And so this was a big time to reset for Denver. I love this draft class. Absolutely love it. I love that they're getting them involved. I think that's, and just not to drag this on because we're gonna close out here, but to see the rookies getting handed some pretty big roles this year, or earning big roles. They're not just being handed these roles. Royce Freeman's playing really well for a rookie, and he's earning that role. Philip Lindsay earned that role as the team's primary number 2 running back, and at times he looks like he's the number 1 back on the team. So these guys are earning roles. They're earning their place. Last year, the rookie class just wasn't given, the opportunity to show what they've got. Maybe that's because it was a really bad class. I don't know, but
didn't earn it. And
these guys are earning it. I love it. I can't wait to see Deshaun get some more opportunities. Mm-hmm. I'm very excited for that. And
definitely need to see more out of Yadam.
We do.
I want to see he's somebody I want to see out there because I have zero faith in Brock and Jones. So Yadam, put him in a position to succeed, and he's going to take some lumps, but I think that's probably the way to go. He had so much more physicality than those other guys have, and they need that.
I think he did a great job of bouncing back after that big catch he allowed against Baltimore. He had a pretty good game after that. I think he only allowed 20 some yards after that 44-yard catch by John Brown, and so and even on the very next play, he was on Michael Crabtree's hip, finishing a play, forcing the ball out of catchable range, out of bounds, and so I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's the kind of guy that seems like he may give up the big play every now and again, but then he's going to fix it immediately. So I like that about him. I think he's just a really smart player, so I'm excited to see more of him. And I'm interested to know, Nick, since you mentioned this, office trivia, what was the question that you're most proud to have answered correctly from that? I'm interested to know.
What was the name of Jan's company that made her that after she left the paper company?
Oh my gosh. That is a tough question. You answered that right. Oh my gosh.
I had a teammate who was pretty
good.
darn dated.
All right, what's
So
the
the
answer?
team
I'm blanking on it.
Serenity by Jan.
Oh, absolutely. The Candle Company. The Candle Company. That's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite things in the show is when Andy's trying to suck up to Michael, and he's like, "I think you should think about investing in my wife's candle company or my girlfriend's candle company, or whatever." And Andy's like, "Thought about it. I'm in." It's just I use that all the time in daily conversation. Thought about it. I'm in. Don't even have to think about it. I'm in.
Yep. Yeah. No, we did okay. It's a fun trivia. We actually got third place a while back, a couple months back for the Parks and Rec version of that, and there was. Gosh, it was packed. It's at a brewery, and it's a big brewery here in Iowa City called Big Grove. Not a sponsor of the pod, I don't think, at least for you guys. And they had 160 teams and over 600 people there. So
wow,
it was crazy.
That's huge. Wow,
Yeah,
nuts.
And people dressed up in their Shroot Farms shirt, Dwight impersonations with the yellow sleeve shirt, and just like everybody was going all out. It was great.
That's amazing. I need to find one of those around here.
Yeah, I'm sure it's around.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been awesome. I feel a lot better about this game now. Win or lose, I feel good about this game. So hopefully you, the listener, are feeling good as well. It's nothing to stress your life out over. This is fun. This is football. And if the Broncos do lose, you've got Nick and so many of his colleagues at Mile High Huddle who can talk about the NFL draft as well. Get you excited about the upcoming draft class, because it is a good looking draft class. And so especially on the defensive line, my goodness, wow.
I looked through a mock day. It was like defensive tackle, defensive tackle, defensive tackle, defensive end, defensive tackle, defensive end. I was like, wow,
yeah,
for 7 picks.
Yeah,
wow.
Seriously.
Wow.
I started a list today of potential first round picks for the Broncos. Just guys to have highlighted. Obviously, not all of them are going to go first round. 12 defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen. 12, absolutely insane class.
Wow,
that is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I love that the Broncos kind of have a thing for Pac-12 guys in the draft a little bit. I think the Pac-12 lead is the number one most represented conference on the team, if I'm not mistaken, and so may get a little bit more on the Justin Herbert side if we go quarterback this year from Oregon. So
don't tease me.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
I'm ready to be hurt again.
Oh man, I love it. Well, as we said at the beginning of the show, you can and should and will. I'm commanding you to follow Nick on Twitter. His handle is at
Kylo Ren, like
Jedi.
Yeah,
that was the mind tricks are happening. The mind tricks are happening at Nick Kendell with an E. KENDELL. You will follow him. You will not sell him any death sticks. But follow Nick Kendell, MHH on Twitter. Follow the Building the Broncos podcast. Follow Huddle Up. Follow all the guys at Mile High Huddle. Great guys. Carl and I have shared a hotel room.
Ooh.
That's how serious it's been. Yep.
Scandy.
It's been super serious, and so and also I've got to mention this. You have to follow the new at Knights of Den Twitter account. So we've got it's not new, I guess. It's been out there, but this is a new branding for the podcast. And so follow the Knights of Den Twitter account. Subscribe to us on YouTube, as we have a new YouTube channel. It's no longer my personal one, which is nice. So we're just kind of shifting everything over into a new era, and Nick has been here to join us in that, and it's been great. So
a lot more content, a lot more things coming. We're getting it all worked out. We're doing a lot of cool graphic design stuff, getting some merch ready, and just kind of going through a bit of a revolution. We're trying to figure out exactly how we want to approach the different social media angles and take over the galaxy.
That's right. Take over the galaxy one step at a time. Well, Nick, thank you for joining us, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm always down to talk football, and if you need somebody to come on during draft season, I mean, I'm pretty opinionated.
Yeah,
that is a certainty.
Sounds like a
certainty. Absolutely. Well, Brandon, I feel like even though this is a new era, I don't know if our sign off has to change whatsoever.
This is not a part that needs to change, though. You know, there needs to be some, like, I was thinking we need a little intro sound. We need some sound effects. There needs to be some lightsaber igniting, you know, there needs to be some of that going. But that's a little teaser of the future coming. But no, the ending of the juice will carry over into this new era. So thank you everybody for listening. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. It's been a great podcast, talking a little bit of review and a little bit of preview. Hope you guys are all enjoying your week. Hope this helped you get through the days until we can make it to Monday Night Football. And thanks always for joining us. And as always, God bless and go Broncos.